Welcome back to the Major Street YouTube channel. Today is another video in our Meet the Team series, and I'm joined by Annie Reid. Annie is the director of Atrium Media, a copywriting and content marketing studio, and she also shares the office with us at Major Street. We thought it would be a good idea to introduce Annie to our channel, but to also pick her brain about being a copywriter and the kind of work that she does. So yeah, thanks for being here today with us, Annie.
Thanks for inviting me, Kate.
So if you could just tell us a little bit about your background, Atrium, and why you decided to start your own business.
Okay, well, I knew that I wanted to be a journalist when I was 14. My grandfather was an author and a journalist as well, and I can remember being at their house and hearing him tap away on his typewriter in the den, and I always really loved that sound and decided as I said, from a very early age that that's what I wanted to do. So I was able to secure a cadetship with Fairfax, and I did my journalism training there and then went to university, and also travelled to London and worked as a writer and journalist. When I came back, that's when I decided that I wanted to freelance. I really liked the idea of full control and flexibility to write for who I wanted from anywhere in the world, and writing for a different range of clients and newspapers and magazines. But I decided to launch Atrium Media as a way to formalise all the work that I've done and create a more professional image of who I am. And that has carried me through today, to 2017.
So what's the difference between being a writer, an author, and a copywriter?
I think the main difference is an author and a writer is responsible for their own style and tone and the direction that the content comes from, because it comes from them. So it's very personal. A copywriter's job is to be a channel for that style and tone of the author or their client. So you can be writing for a range of clients, but they'll all have a different style and tone of voice. So you have to be able to translate from the client what they want to say in the style that they want to say it, and be able to portray that in the writing.
I imagine you'd have to be quite adaptable then to have lots of different voices and tones.
Because each business has its own style and tone. So some businesses want something that's a bit more conversational and chatty and informal, whereas other businesses, like say a law firm or a professional company, it's a little more formal. It can be a bit more educational, less entertainment focused. So you really need to be able to adapt the style quite quickly and be able to read the client and understand where they're coming from. Because some companies will have a style guide that you can work from where they've already established what their tone of voice is, but others won't. So you need to be able to read between the lines and understand where they're coming from.
So how do copywriters work with book publishers such as Major Street?
We've got a really collaborative and fluid relationship. So typically Leslie and Major Street will brief me on a project, and I'll come in at a pretty early stage to a book's process. So it might be I'll be involved in meetings where we'll talk about the layout of the book, what needs to be said, a chapter structure, and then I will work with the authors to get all that content down on paper. So really Leslie is involved at the start in briefing me, then I take over for the writing process, and then I basically hand it back to Leslie, and Major Street will conduct the publishing process that takes place once the content's all written down and the author's happy with it.
So you're more so working closely with an author rather than a publisher in that middle section of
and then because Major Street does other types of publishing, other types of content creation like newsletters and brochures and other pieces of communications, then that's something where I can help. Again, Leslie will refer work onto me, and likewise I can refer work to Leslie as well. So there have been occasions where I've had say clients or people that I've written about who've been interested in having a book published, and I can say, well, I work with Major Street. They're very experienced in finance or property and business books, and then refer the work over and start a conversation.
Yeah, so it's very collaborative in that sense.
Yeah, I think so.
So speaking of projects, do you have any favourites that you've worked on in your career or with Major Street or overall?
Yeah, I think that I love working on book projects. So my first one's still one of my favourites. This is John Ilhan's the biography that was published in 2009 by Wiley. This was a really fabulous project to work on because we had really, really warm and welcoming reception from his friends and family who were all part of the book. And his wife Patricia was really, she was very supportive of the direction that the book was taking and where we started from and where we finished up. And as a result, I think everyone was really happy with this book, and it sold really well as a result. So I was very proud to be involved with this one. This is the Armchair Guide to Property Investing. So this is one of the first books that I worked on with Major Street, and this was another really fantastic and collaborative process with Ben and Bryce, who were the authors, and that involved quite an intense period of a few months of going into their offices and creating the content, a review process, and then finally ending up with this book that they're both really happy with. And as a result, this is a wonderful piece that I can put in my portfolio that I'm really proud of.
And
so
it's
that
also got on the front the #1 business bestseller, so successful all round. That's good. So do you have a favourite part of your job or part of the writing process? What do you enjoy the most?
I love interviews. For me, the great thing about being a writer is meeting people. So I love being able to have an open door into places and for people that I normally wouldn't meet in day-to-day life, and particularly as a writer who's really passionate about property and design and architecture, being able to go into someone's house and or other spaces around the city that the public don't usually have access to, and not only that, but meet the people behind the scenes, so the ones who have designed the spaces and who've come up with the concepts, and because they're shaping our city, and that's a really great thing to learn about firsthand. So I really enjoy the that very first stage of the process, which is meeting the people, and then I enjoy the writing part as well. I think you can't really say you're a writer if you don't enjoy writing.
You couldn't do it if you didn't enjoy it.
So I do enjoy the writing, and I like taking the time to craft each word so that they all work together really well, and they reflect not only who I'm interviewing but the publication that I'm writing for. So it's all a bit of a balancing act, but at the end of the day, if I can read that piece in the magazine that I've written it for and my editor hasn't taken it apart,
you know you've done well.
I'm pretty happy.
So finally, do you have any advice for anyone who's looking to start a career in writing or content creation?
Yes. I think one of the best things you can do when you're starting out writing for yourself and starting a small business is to do a short course and to find yourself a business mentor. So I think you have the tools to be a writer, and if you're thinking about freelancing, then you've probably already proven yourself that you can get the work and get the clients. But the mechanics of running a business are really difficult, and if you don't have experience in doing that, it's really challenging. So I think as a way to fast track your freelance success and your freelance career into transitioning from being a freelancer to running a small business, do the courses. So there are heaps that you can do through the Small Business Victoria. They offer so many, and there are also mentors that you can choose from. A lot of these are free or they're at a really low cost. So I think that I really wish I had have done that straight off the bat when I started out, but I didn't, and they would have been really, really valuable. So another piece of advice is to be patient and start small and be persistent. So I think it's really easy to look around and see everyone else doing really well and getting lots of work, and thinking that it comes really quickly and really easily. But for anyone who's done the hard yards, it doesn't. It can take years, and it takes time. You have to be really persistent and love what you're doing, because if you don't love it, you won't make the time for it, and it's really hard to keep that persistence going and that drive when maybe things do dry up a little bit, or the economy turns down, or things change in the industry that you haven't accounted for. But I've always said that if you're really good at what you do, then you'll always have work. So I think it's just, don't give up.
No, I think that's really good advice, like to have realistic expectations, but then also to be able to ride those waves when
because it's hard. It is hard. And there are times when you might question if what you're doing is the right path for you, because there are so many things that we can all do, especially as writers and journalists and publishers and authors. But stay true to who you are and where you want to be.
That's good.
And it'll happen.
Well, thank you so much for being on our channel. Really appreciate it.
Kate.
And, I think that's been some really good advice. I'll leave links in the description box below to Annie's website and Atrium if you want to check them out if you need any copywriting done. But thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks, Kate.